Yo, what's happening, Raider Nation? It's your boy Soto here. You know what it is, Raiders versus the world, coming at you Thanksgiving Eve, recording this for the day after Thanksgiving on Black Friday or Brown Friday if you're a plumber. If you know, you know. And I want to talk a little bit about getting a job because you know somebody. Now, I've never gotten a job because I knew somebody. I've gotten an opportunity to get myself a job because I knew I've never gotten a job. I've never given anyone a job. I've given them an interview. I've given them an opportunity. That is what Chip Kelly got. Chip Kelly got an opportunity, and he wasn't handed a lifetime pass by Tom Brady and by John Spytek. He was handed the opportunity to be the offensive coordinator of the Las Vegas Raiders, and he got a lot of autonomy. He got a lot of leeway, a lot of slack, and there's a lot of things that were happening on the field and a lot of things were happening off the field behind the scenes that just weren't adding up. And it was pretty apparent from one of the very first games. I believe it was the second game of the season against the Chargers when we only scored 9 points and didn't run the ball very well, or didn't run the ball very much, I should say. Pete Carroll was on Chip Kelly basically in that press conference talking about needing to run the ball more. If you guys have an opportunity, go back to the post-game press conference from the post-game that right after Monday night and the next day that Pete Carroll gave. He was giving it to Chip Kelly then and there about getting on the same page and running the ball more. It just never stopped. And the last 3 games, the Raiders were a 70% pass offense. And when you hear what's coming up, maybe it shouldn't have been. Maybe the plays were supposed to be runs, but nobody knew what Chip Kelly was calling. Let's hear what Tom Pelissero had to say on the Rich Eisen show about Chip Kelly and how he screwed up his opportunity as offensive coordinator with the Raiders. Check this out.
As you pointed out, you observed in one of your posts this week, Tom, that Pete Carroll's never fired an assistant in his entire career and has now done so twice in the span of 17 days, special teams and now offensive coordinator. Chip Kelly is out. What is Tom Brady thinking? Because it's really what it comes down to. Let's be honest. Let's just boil it down. Like how much was he influential in the decisions of these coaching staff that Pete is now changing middle of the season? And what decisions need to be made over the final, or needs to be seen over the next 6 weeks to potentially make more decisions in Vegas?
Well, let's rewind to last January.
Okay.
It had become apparent by the end of last season that Tom Brady's number one choice was Ben Johnson. That was the coach that he wanted. He had talked about him at times in certain ways, and people read into his comments on the broadcast. He had certainly spoken with him before games and things like that. Tom Brady is maybe not just the greatest, but the smartest quarterback to ever play the game. And the things that he saw Ben Johnson do were so next level in Detroit. That was the guy he wanted. And there was a bet of sorts made by the Raiders that it's Tom Brady. Who's going to say no to Tom Brady? So Tom was directly recruiting Ben Johnson and trying to convince him to come. The Raiders, I was told at the time, had a massive offer out to Ben Johnson. They wanted him to come in the building and go through a second interview, but it was pretty apparent if Ben wanted the job, it was Ben's job. Well, one day after the Lions season ends, he's on a plane to Chicago, and he is taking the Bears job without even having to do an in-person interview. His performance against the Bears had kind of been his interview for a couple of years, but the Bears also made him a really strong offer. And I got the sense even at the time that there was no clear plan B. Not that they didn't have different thoughts in mind about who they might want to interview, but they interviewed, a variety of coaches from different backgrounds. They interviewed, Robert Saleh was somebody who had interviewed with them. They interviewed some other younger coaches. They interviewed some older coaches. Pete Carroll, philosophically, schematically, age, personality, has virtually nothing in common with Ben Johnson. And the point I'm making is, not only did you pivot in terms of the coach you hired, you completely pivoted in the way that you were trying to build it. From Ben Johnson, offensive guru, he's 39 years old or whatever, long-term answer, to Pete Carroll, defensive coach in his 70s, was out last year, just wants to run the football, throw it when he needs to, and win with defense. It was totally different. Chip Kelly seemed like he was the bridge between the two, which was Chip had been regarded at his peak, going back to Oregon and early on in Philadelphia as being somebody who was really, really smart with offense. But what you saw was once Chip didn't have the players who were better than everyone else, he had Deshaun Jackson, LaShawn McCoy early in Philly. He made the choices to get rid of them. All of a sudden, the Eagles' offense wasn't the same. He goes to San Francisco. That offense was not the same. He's out of the NFL. He goes back to college. Ohio State, what's the common denominator? Better athletes than everybody else had. I was at the week 1 game. The Raiders beat the Patriots.
Yeah.
But that might be the weirdest result
No
of
doubt.
the entire NFL schedule.
No doubt.
When you rewind, it was kind of bumpy that day, but they made some plays. And it just seemed like from week 2 on, teams just kind of caught up with what the Raiders were doing. And there are all kinds of different stories, Rich, about just the dysfunction of the Raiders offense. There were times I was told where Chip Kelly was repeatedly botching the play calls, where he's supposed to be, for instance, tagging a motion on a play so the receiver's on the left, not the right. He forgets to say it. So Geno Smith is going to the line of scrimmage and going, this doesn't look right. And they're trying to run a play. It happened on a 3rd down in the game the other day. There's times where Chip, I was told on several occasions, called a play that was either not in the game plan or not installed at all. Things like that happen. You're not productive. That's enough. You didn't need any extra excuses.
Damn.
But there were a lot of things that were popping up within games that were just not anything that a good team can overcome. They didn't have enough talent. There's no doubt about it. Maybe my favorite stat of the entire season is there were only 3 players on the Raiders offense who were making more money than Chip Kelly. It was Geno Smith, Colton Miller, and Ashton Genty was making like 6.1. Chip was making $6 million a year. I can't think of another team that has a setup like that. It was always going to be a challenge for them offensively, but Chip's scheme was supposed to elevate it. And what you saw on the field made pretty obvious. There was kind of a level of chaos to it that just made it really, really hard for them to function.
Wow. When I first heard this, it was a couple of weeks ago that there was some issues with the install. And that is to say lightly. If what Tom Pelissero is saying, and there's no reason for him to be lying, if what he's saying is true, that's not just a problem with the install. A problem with the install could be Chip Kelly is stopping babying these guys and they're just not getting the game plan. That could be one thing. Problem with the install is it's just moving too fast, and the young receivers maybe aren't catching up to the plays and the nuances of how to switch with the play with certain coverages and stuff. That's problem with the install. This is not a problem with the install. This is a problem with a offensive coordinator who seems like he's mailing it in. Now, I'm not saying that he's not trying to score points. He's not trying to win, but he's not burning the candle at both ends. He's not, burning that midnight oil, and he's not over there grinding over the minutia of the offense. If he's forgetting tags on motion plays, he's not getting – I'm not saying that it's not the offensive line's fault, but if you have a formation that calls for a certain play, you call a certain protection scheme off of the formation that you have, and if you're not running that formation, it could mess up the blocking scheme. I'm not saying that's the truth, that's what happened or that's what didn't happen, but it's possible. On top of that, you're calling plays that weren't installed for that week. We saw that happen with Paul Gunther about 4 or 5 years ago when John Gruden finally had to let him go because it was just too much, and it was too much for the players. They needed to have it simpler. He wanted to have everything in his – famously, Will Compton said that there was like 35 third down calls. It's like ridiculous. Now, on top of that, Chip Kelly is calling plays that aren't even in the playbook, and that clock is ticking. That play clock is running. You have to get out there, and you have to just run a play. So I can see where some of the frustration set in with Geno Smith, where he's getting a play call in his ear. He sees, look up at the time, there's 12 seconds on the clock, and he's like, man, I got to run a play. I got to call something. So let me see who I have out here and what I can call. Wow, that's rough, man. That's really rough. So that there's no surprise now. If that's been happening, and then the result on the field, if you're not competent at your job, and I'm not saying that Chip Kelly isn't a competent offensive coordinator. What I'm saying is the job he did with the Raiders wasn't as a competent offensive coordinator. If you do a poor job and the results and the productivity is poor, you got to go. I don't care who hired you. I don't care who your grandpa is. I don't care who your uncle is. I don't care who you know. You got to go. And Chip Kelly's gone. Greg Olson is the new Greg Olson is the new offensive coordinator, and he had a press conference, his first one as offensive coordinator this year. Let's check out and see what Ole had to say.
Yeah, hectic.
Another day, huh?
Hectic to say the least. Yeah.
So kind of in familiar territory here for you. Based on your past experiences, taking over at this point, what becomes sort of the way to streamline things so that there's as seamless a transition as possible?
Well, as you know, it's difficult to change a whole lot. And anyone that goes into an offensive system, quarterback would tell you it's oftentimes like learning a new language. So at this point, there's not a lot that you would change in terms of how we're calling things, terminology-wise. But there are tweaks that you can make, and certainly that we're making to try and be more efficient, because they haven't been efficient enough. And it goes back to a lot of different reasons as to why. But at this point, with 6 games to go, we will make some tweaks, but there won't be a lot of wholesale changes that you'll see.
I guess what can be done to help the protection when that's been an issue, especially over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, there's a lot of different things. We've done things by bringing more in. We've done things by spreading them out and getting into some empty formations. But obviously, it hasn't worked. But there's when you look at it, we're always constantly trying to get the best 5 out there in terms of the offensive line, and they're competing every day here on the practice field. Any of those, the backup linemen, they're always getting work against Maxx and our number 1 defense. So we're constantly evaluating the personnel. So we're trying to make sure we get the right personnel on the field, but also using different systems of the running back, tight ends, chips, max protections, trying to find different ways to help out the front. And certainly the timing of the patterns. Everyone's involved in it, really, when you look at it. I mean, getting the ball out on time, receivers running the right routes, crisp routes, timing routes, running backs involved in protection or in the route combinations. I mean, we're all a part of it, and we've all got to get better.
A couple of days ago, Pete was asked, what are some things that he believes that you bring to the table, and he said that you two are synced in terms of what you want to do with running the ball. How important is running the ball, meaning you in these last 6 games, to create more opportunities on offense?
Yeah, I think it's important in any system, and certainly we're coming from Seattle. Probably nobody ran it better than the Seahawks during their 10-year run there with Marshawn Lynch, who we had a chance to have here in Vegas and Oakland. So I've always believed in that as well. I think when you look across the league, the successful teams are the teams that run the ball when they want to run it, not just to run it to maintain balance, but we've got to get in the mindset of when we want to run the football, we'll run the football, no matter what the situation or who we're playing. So it just helps you. A lot of people talk about balance, and certainly we're looking for balance in what we're doing, and running the football is part of that, whether it's running it in the first quarter or being able to finish the game and run it in the fourth quarter. We just got to get better at that part of what we're doing.
How much does that play into, Ashton Genty's not just a guy that you run the ball to set things up with. He's literally a weapon. But just getting him the ball more enough times where that weaponry becomes prevalent in a game.
Yeah, no question. And that's, part of the reason why we drafted him where we did was expectations of not only the player himself, but expectations of what we want our offense to look like. So, and getting him more involved, like as you said, touches, whether it be the passing game or the run game, screen game, quick game. I think there's a lot of things that he can do besides run the football, but how do you get the ball in your players' hands, your best players' hands? And he's one of our best players, so we got to find more ways to get him the ball.
How confident do you feel in calling plays for a guy like Geno Smith, who you have experience already with, not only just here, but in Seattle?
Yeah, I'm thankful that I had a relationship with him in Seattle, and thankful that I had an opportunity to work with him in Seattle, and obviously Pete as well. But it certainly makes things easier. Again, I think anytime that you're with a first-time quarterback and coming into a new place with a new quarterback, there has to be that trust that's established between a play caller or between a quarterback coach and the quarterback, and that was established before he came here. So I'm certainly comfortable with our relationship, and he and I both are on the same page, and we know that we've got to get better as well, in the quarterback room. So, but it's a good feeling having someone here that I've had a chance to work with in the past.
When you're stepping in this latest season, what's the benefit of having someone like Brock Bowers in the passing game?
I mean, anytime you always want to surround yourself with great players, and certainly he's one of the greatest tight ends here in the league, and you know, he's going to be a great player here for a long time. So anytime you have great players, it makes your job easier as a coach.
Mike's known as a good blocker. Do you think he could help in that regard, even, you know, more so too?
Yeah. I think, again, our combination of tight ends and really all that tight end room is probably one of the strengths of our offense right now. When you look at the 4 tight ends right now in that room that we've had up on game day and have been able to utilize all 4 of them. So that to me is an area that we can build upon going forward.
I know it's their jobs, and you know, obviously they got 17 games that they have to play out. But when there's a season going like it's going, and then there's a change right now, how do you keep the room focused, motivated, and keep going, pushing strong?
Yeah, I think that's your job as a coach, you know, stimulate and motivate your players, because team morale or coaches morale, whatever it can be at a point right now in the season, you've got to stay up. And I think experience sometimes, if you've experienced that, you learn how to do that and learn to get through tough times. I think anyone that's ever faced any adversity in their life would say they grew from it. And I think that's important, an important lesson for everybody. But that's part of our job as a coaching staff, is to continue to stimulate, continue to motivate these players to finish this season.
What would you say the mood of the room was when the change was made and you were brought in as the play caller?
Yeah, I don't know. I you know, there's only a couple guys, certainly Maxx and Colton, and you know, we had DJ Turner was a guy that was here in the past, but a lot of these guys know I was here, but you know, they were congratulatory towards me, and you know, that you know, it's a good feeling. But you know, again, at 2-9, there's not a lot of great things to be real happy about. So we just got to get better and keep working every day and continue to get better.
That's good. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys. Yep.
Thanks, Steven.
Yep.
Pretty straightforward stuff, man. Ole said it. Like, it's always great to have great players. And Greg Olson in the past, when he was involved with the Raiders, he knows how to use the tight ends a lot. He targets them a lot. He calls a lot of plays for them. Doesn't matter who it was at tight end. Let's show you this clip here. Thank you for contributor Rory for sending this to me. All right, Ryan Heath on Twitter, he writes, when new Raiders play caller Greg Olson was an offensive coordinator. In 2018, a 31-year-old Jared Cook led the team with 101 targets. Now, that team was terrible. That was the 4-win team, okay? In 2019, Darren Waller leads the team with 117 targets in his first year playing tight end. 2020, Waller leads the team with 145 targets. 2021, Waller gets hurt but averages 8.5 targets per game. Now, it was Darren Waller, and he warranted that type of usage, but Brock Bowers is every bit the player plus more than Darren Waller ever was. So expect Brock Bowers to get a ton of usage. Expect Brock Bowers to get a lot of targets and a lot of usage with this new attack led by Greg Olson. If you play daily fantasy, I would say targets or receptions, I would go the over. Whatever it is, go the over on Brock Bowers and hope he doesn't get hurt. What we're looking at here is a guy that has a plan and a guy that doesn't screw around. Your best player, if you're the best player on a Greg Olson offense, you're going to get the ball. You're going to get used in a multitude of ways, and you're going to get a chance to make plays. That's what we need. We don't need a guy that's going to go around here and just throw a bunch of stuff out against the wall and see what sticks, to kind of try to be too cute and get in the shotgun on the 3-yard line. That's not who Greg Olson is. That's not who we should have ever been. Hopefully this turns around and we could actually look at some, because right now it's very difficult, not only because a lot of the young guys haven't been playing, but even when they were playing, the offensive system and the offensive play calling just weren't cohesive. So you can't realistically scout your own players because the offense was just a mess. Now these last 6 games, Greg Olson come in here, steady the waters a little bit on the offensive side, and let's hope we get a cohesive game plan moving forward and something that makes any type of sense for the down and distance and the game scenario that we're in at the time. Hopefully it works out and we get a good look at some guys, and maybe we might make a little bit of noise offensively. All right, guys, that's my time for today. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Why don't you go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to this video. It's the nice way to support the channel, and it's absolutely free. On top of that, we have the Shield Society. It's only $5 a month. It's a fun time, man. You get some perks, you get some freebies. If you want to do it and could do it, great. I would appreciate it. If not, that's fine. I'll still go ahead and give you a video every single day. All I ask for in return is that you tell your friends, tell your haters, tell your mamas, tell everybody Raiders versus the world is the greatest thing going in Raider Nation today. All right, guys, that's my time. Till next time, everybody. Peace. Hey, Raider Nation. Thanks for watching. There's plenty more where that came from. Go ahead and smash that like button. Drop a comment. Make sure to subscribe and share to all your socials. It's the bare minimum you can do without doing absolutely nothing.